The Israeli military has begun its ground operation in southern Lebanon, carrying out raids close to its northern border. Italian police arrested 19 people on Monday accused of forming mafia groups connected with the football business. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the preparation of a new security agreement amid intensified fighting in the country's east. The Israeli military began its ground operation in southern Lebanon in the early hours on Tuesday. It said in a statement that it was carrying out targeted ground raids in villages close to the Israeli border. In the statement, Israel's army said it was striking Hezbollah targets and that Air Force and artillery units were carrying out attacks to support the ground forces. IDF forces had already launched small ground raids against Hezbollah on Monday night, sealing off communities along its northern border, which sent signals that a larger ground operation was imminent. Smoke was also seen rising from buildings in the suburbs of Beirut on Monday night following an explosion. Earlier, the Israeli military issued new instructions warning residents of 3 buildings in South Beirut to evacuate immediately. The IDF gave no details on how long the ground operation will last, but said the army had been training and preparing for months.
The European Union's foreign ministers have called for an immediate ceasefire between Hezbollah and Israel amid spiraling tensions. The EU's top diplomat Josep Borrell said that any military intervention from Israel's side would aggravate the situation. The EU's response came hours after Israeli Defense Minister said that the next phase of war against Hezbollah would begin soon.
Any further military intervention would dramatically aggravate the situation and has to be avoided.
Words used by European Union member countries have been stronger, with French Foreign Minister urging both sides to stop firing.
J'exhorte donc Israël à s'abstenir de toute incursion terrestre et à cesser le feu. J'appelle le Hezbollah à faire de même et à s'abstenir de toute action susceptible de mener à une déstabilisation régionale.
The European Union has increased the emergency funding to Lebanon by an extra 10 million euros following recent escalations. However, the divergent positions of its member states have so far prevented extra measures such as sanctions from taking place.
Italian police arrested 19 people on Monday accused of forming mafia groups connected with the football business. Most detainees are top ultras or hardcore fans of Milanese football clubs Inter Milan and AC Milan. The criminal ring was linked to the Italian mafia organization 'Ndrangheta. Giovanni Melillo, Italy's national anti-mafia prosecutor, says there have been risks for some time now in Italy's football stadiums.
Ed è un'indagine importante perché secondo me costringe ad aprire gli occhi sulla realtà, perché la realtà presenta rischi evidenti da tempo di deriva criminale degli stadi italiani e rischi evidenti di condizionamento criminale e anche prettamente mafioso della vita delle società calcistiche.
Prosecutors allege that the suspects have attempted to take control of all the lucrative business activities around Milan's Giuseppe Meazza Stadium, including parking, food, tickets, and souvenir sales. Some of the suspects might also have been involved in drug trafficking. Both leaders of the AC Milan and Inter Milan Ultras fan groups were among those arrested. As Russian attacks in eastern Ukraine intensify, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that Ukraine and its allies are set to sign a new security agreement in an upcoming meeting in Ramstein, Germany. This comes after Zelensky presented Ukraine's victory plan to the U.S. presidential candidates in a recent visit in pursuit of continuing financial and military support.
Готуємось також і до підписання ще однієї безпекової угоди для України вже 27-ї. Провів сьогодні ставку кілька ключових питань. Перше – комплектування бригад. Друге – зброя і техніка для наших воїнів, закупівля і постачання.
In recent days, the Russian army has been pushing Ukrainian troops backward in eastern areas, causing widespread destruction. Multiple people were wounded as Russia launched several attacks on the Kherson and Sumy regions. In Kherson, one person died in the attacks. Drone footage shows further destruction in the eastern Ukrainian town of Vuhledar, where Ukrainian forces are under severe pressure. Zelensky said it is necessary to determine how to increase pressure on the Russian Federation at the meeting in Ramstein on 12 October.
The victory of Austria's far-right Freedom Party, FPÖ, at the Sunday's elections marks another win for Euroscepticism in Europe. It's the first time since the Second World War the far-right has finished first in an election. Despite narrowly winning the election, the FPÖ faces challenges forming a coalition, with the other major parties refusing to work with its controversial leader, Herbert Kickl.
What they're very vocal about is anti-migration. So this was very strong in the past decades and again in the campaign. And one can speculate, one still has to really look at these results and also look at polls, opinion polls, why people voted the way they voted. But what we hear is that this migration course, pushing very strongly anti-migration discourse, that we also see in other European countries, that seems to have worked well.
The far right has recently scored several wins across Europe. However, Hungary is still the only member state with a single far-right party that has a majority in power. Other far-right parties are in coalition governments such as in Italy, the Netherlands, Finland, Czechia and Croatia. In both France and Germany, far-right parties might not be in power yet, but have made historic wins.
For Europe at large, we see that there is, of course, a shift to the right, and we have to ask ourselves the question why and what to do about it. I think what is also very important is that it's very clear you cannot no longer ignore this and go back to business as usual.
It is still not clear if the FPÖ will be able to form a coalition government in Austria. However, if they do lead a coalition, they will join other far-right voices in Europe who want to tighten migration policy as well as minimize aid to Ukraine. The FPÖ joins Hungary's Viktor Orban in calling for some powers to be returned to Austria from the European Union.
Frustration with the mainstream political establishment led to the rise of the far right in Austria and their victory in recent elections. Analysts say the Freedom Party's clear message, such as a hardline stance against migration, helps differentiate them from other political parties.
I think that migration itself is not the major issue, the major problem. It is probably one of the most visible changes. That's why people resist and react to it in a more emotional way. But what the actual problems are is the crisis of the health systems, education systems, administrative systems.
In 1983, the Social Democrats and the Conservatives accounted for almost 91% of the votes. This has now dropped to less than 50%. The Freedom Party historically played a political role in Austria at a mostly local level, but now the far right is the dominant party for the first time since World War II.
To become Austria's new leader, the Freedom Party's Herbert Kickl will need a coalition partner to command parliament majority. With political parties balancing clashing ideologies with the need for a functioning government, Austria's political future is up in the air. Euronews, in Vienna, Austria, Jan Husar.
A large wildfire burning through mainland Greece has killed 2 people, authorities said on Monday. The 2 men were believed to be residents of Kilokastro off the Peloponnese coast. 350 firefighters, assisted by 18 water-dropping aircraft, were deployed to battle the blaze. The fire was fanned by strong winds blowing through tinder-dry forests. Greece's warm spring and hot summer has been attributed to climate change. The fire's large front has been put out, but scattered flare-ups continue to burn, forcing the evacuation of 3 villages. Civil protection officials warn that several parts of the Mediterranean country, including roads, would face a high risk of wildfires on Tuesday.
Clean-up operations are still ongoing for emergency teams in Denmark after severe flooding caused widespread damage in the western part of the country. According to the Danish Weather Service, more than 140 litres of rain per square metre fell in the port city of Esbjerg and surrounding areas on the Danish North Sea coast over the weekend. Denmark's emergency services are calling for more and better resources amid concerns that weather conditions will become even more extreme in the future.